What's up, guys? Welcome to Jew Whiskey. My name's Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below, and with that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're looking at the Costco 20-year-old Speyside Single Malt. Stick around. Okay, so we've got a mystery malt today. We've got a Costco or Kirkland brand 20-year-old Speyside Single Malt release. Now, Costco is usually a brand I turn to when I need 20 kilos of bacon, an entire liter of maple syrup, and copious amounts of chicken nuggets. And that's because I have the diet of a 6-year-old. And then, inevitably, after that breakfast of champions, I'm probably going to need a fair amount of tissue paper. Once again, Costco's got me covered. I just bought 7,000 rolls for $20. But, dear viewer, Costco is so much more than tissue paper and chicken nuggets. Once in a while, they do have a release for single malt scotch drinkers, whiskey people, our people. So that's what we've got today. It's a Kirkland single malt scotch whiskey. It's 20 years old. These are Alexander Murray releases, and they're usually pretty big hits. I don't know about you guys, but I usually get like texts or something will pop up in like a local whiskey group saying that Costco's got in a fresh supply of scotch from the far-flung shores of Speyside, and then within a few days they're usually sold out. Like, these sell out pretty quick. By the way, apologies to my viewers in Europe. I know that there aren't many Costco's in Europe. I just googled it. There's like 2 in France, there's a few in Spain, I think 1 in Sweden or Norway, somewhere in Scandinavia. So you guys don't really have access to these whiskeys, I would imagine, most of the time, but fair is fair. I reviewed the Glenfarclas 15 not too long ago, which is available all across Europe and nowhere to be found in America, so... By the way, that last little clip took like 4 takes, so please enjoy this little compilation of me doing whatever that is. Anyway, as I was saying, these are quite popular whiskeys. Of course, they're not going to be popular with like the fancy pants whiskey drinkers, like the luxury collectors and all that. But for normal people like you and I, you know, these will do just fine. We're not fancy pants whiskey drinkers. In fact, currently, I'm not even a pants whiskey drinker. But yeah, for the average consumer, the general consensus out there is that these do represent very good value. Now, there are a bunch of these releases, and apparently they're not all from the same distillery, but there are a lot that are quite well aged. Mine happens to be 20 years old. A lot of them are going to be 20 plus years old. Most of these are going to be sherry cask finishes. Again, they don't disclose what distillery they came from. My release here is from 2022, but I do have another bottle here that's from like a year or 2 prior. So we have a very nice age statement. This one was matured in bourbon casks, finished in sherry casks, and of course Costco is very famous for giving us good deals. Now, before you even get to test the whiskey, just looking at the bottle, you can see that the specs are good. You can see that for the age, the price is fantastic. So far so good when it comes to value, but let's look at the whiskey itself. Let's jump into the review. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So as I just said, we do have good specs here. This is actually for the whiskey drinker. We've got 46%, we've got non-chill filtered, we've got natural color. All of this from like this bulk sales Costco product. So it's a little bit surprising, but well done. For the look, I don't love the look of this bottle. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's great. It's all pretty average. I think the label's kind of whatever. It doesn't stand out. Doesn't look terrible. It's just kind of there. We have a lion rampant that's engraved into the glass. I'll give you a close-up of it there. That doesn't look great. Presentation is 2 out of 5. Now, this does not mention that it's non-chill filtered and natural color on the label. I didn't get a box with this, so I'm hoping I'm not wrong when I said this was natural color. It is quite dark, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We have a little blurb on the back. The blurb talks about the cask breakdowns. It says bourbon matured, spent minimum of 6 months in Oloroso sherry casks. It gives us some very basic tasting notes. Funny enough, the blurb also mentions that our whiskey here is golden in color. And I don't think... On the nose, this is very deeply sherried. It's a rich, dark, sweet sherry. I'm getting some herbal tones, some earthy notes in here. There's definitely lots of brown sugar, there's cinnamon, there's peppercorn, there's lots of milk chocolate, there's faint anise, there's loads of oranges and berries and red fruits and Christmas cake. Classic big sherry nose. The palate and finish give us a pretty average mouthfeel. I get sweetness first and then some spices kind of gradually start to roll in. It's fruity, it's sweet, it's earthy, it's herbal. I get brown sugar, sweet praline, chocolate, caramel. There's some intense dark red fruits. There's berries, cherries, or like cherry cough syrup, a little bit that herbal medicinal note. Medium finish. Okay, so this one is absolutely jam-packed with sherry. So it's definitely one for you sherry bombers out there. So if you're a fan of like really rich, dark, fruity, berry sweetness, you're gonna like this one. It is well aged. We do taste the age in here. I wouldn't necessarily say it tastes 20 years old, but you can tell it's got some maturity. And of course, that's usually a good thing. Because this does happen occasionally where a 20-year-old is too old. And, you know, maybe it's taken on too much wood. You find yourself turning something a little bit younger, a little bit fresher, maybe an 18-year-old. Nope, I'm gonna stop right there. I hear it. And obviously, I'm not saying any of that to discredit older whiskeys. Of course, some of the best whiskeys in the world are going to be much older than 20 years, but the master blenders do have to be careful. They have to keep an eye on things. There is such a thing as being over oaked. Luckily, that's not the case here. In fact, if I was going in blind, you might be able to convince me this is a little bit younger than 20 years old, maybe 18 years or so, and that's not a bad thing. This has aged nicely. The oak is present, but it's restrained. But I'll tell you what is definitely not restrained. The sherry. Oh boy. Yeah, I think the sherry is where this whiskey is going to lose some people. That's where it lost me a little bit, if I'm being honest. Now, I like a heavily sherried whiskey. I don't mind a good sherry bomb from time to time. But this, bit too sweet. Yeah, just, it's kind of too sweet for me. And beyond that, there's that cherry cough syrup note, which I definitely didn't love. And even the chocolate in here. Like, usually I like chocolate notes in my whiskey. Certainly my sherried whiskey, it usually works. But the chocolate in here is like, you know those really cheap milk chocolates, like those Hershey bar type milk chocolates? It just doesn't taste good. Also, I can't pick out any distillate character underneath all the casks. I get a bunch of brown sugar and red fruits and sweetness. Behind that, honestly, not much. It's an entirely cask-dominated whiskey, which I don't hate in concept, and there are definitely some very good sherry bombs out there. But usually, you'll need like a nice, bold spirit underneath, at least to have a fighting chance against all those casks. We don't really have that here, so it's a very nondescript, heavily sherried whiskey. Now listen, I know I'm coming down pretty hard on this whiskey. It does have some good things about it. Certainly if you're a fan of sherry, and I don't mean like a little bit of sherry. If you like sherry bombs, if you like that big intense sherry, sure, this one probably will work for you. I think there's some nice, interesting herbal notes in here. There's a nice earthiness. It is very rich. It does have things going for it. So it is a personal thing. It's not a poor quality whiskey, but it just doesn't have a lot of the stuff that I'm looking for personally, namely that identifiable character underneath the casks, the distillate flavors. I don't get a lot of those. Even the sherry influence itself doesn't really resonate with me. So for score, I'm gonna land on 83. It is worth noting though that I do have two bottles, and the thing about this bottle is I like this much more than that one. They're both from the same distillery. I'll explain how I know that in a minute, but this one for me is a much better whiskey. It's a little bit more interesting. It's not quite as simple. It doesn't have those cheap flavors that I noticed in this one. I would score this one an 86. It's a really solid whiskey. And they're basically the same release, but I think a year or two apart. I don't remember quite when I bought this one. So that's something you guys should be aware of. Let's say you buy a certain bottle this year, you buy it again next year, you might notice some variation there. Anyway, moving on, the big question of the day is, where the hell does this whiskey come from? Now, there's a lot of speculation about this online from where does Costco source their whiskeys. Some people, not me, but some people think it's Craigellachie, and that's because we have a little picture of the Craigellachie Bridge on the label. But of course, there's a lot of other distilleries around that area. There's plenty of other ideas out there. Some people say it's Glenrothes, some people say it's Strathmill, some people say it's Tomintoul. Again, lots of theories. Now, the thing is, here in Taiwan, when they import whiskey bottles, you're always going to find an extra little label on the bottle written in Chinese with all of the legally required basic information. And on the Chinese label, they tell you where the product was sourced. Now, we've got this word right here. This word means manufacturer in Chinese. And so basically, who made this stuff? And who made this stuff was TULLIBARDINE. And the thing about TULLIBARDINE is it's not in Speyside. Again, that label is a legal requirement for Taiwanese imports of alcohol, and it says TULLIBARDINE. So I'm 90% sure that is exactly where this whiskey came from. So lying about the region where they sourced the whiskey is a little bit disingenuous. Now keep in mind, I did say 90%, that does leave 10% where I might be totally misguided. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're naming a completely different distillery where they didn't source the product from. Don't know why they do that, but I guess anything's possible. Also, at this point, I should remind you, if you have a different release from this one, your whiskey might be from a completely different distillery. They're not all from the same place, but I'm pretty sure mine is from TULLIBARDINE, which is interesting. Anyway, here's value. So as I said, I don't love this one. It's not my preferred style. I don't think the high age statement compensates for the over-the-top sweetness and some of the flavors that I don't really like here. But this will suit a lot of people. When you look at the fact that it's naturally presented, 46%, 20 years old, the price, pretty fair. Now I know right away a lot of you are thinking, well, the specs don't matter, the age doesn't matter if ultimately I don't enjoy the whiskey. Now this whiskey is not for me, but I think a lot of you will enjoy this whiskey. So considering the price, if you've heard my description and you want something heavily sherried, yeah, it's worth trying. It's worth trying. Alright, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, I do have the Patreon. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. Always appreciate it. Of course, I do want to hear from you. Have you tried our Costco 20-year-old here? Have you tried the other ones? I think there's like 22, 23, 24-year-olds. There's a bunch of releases. You can let me know which ones you tried. Did you enjoy them? Put all that down below. Also, you can let me know what you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.